Practice makes perfect, a phrase that we often forget in Airsoft. And while I love doing it, for some reason I don't do it that often. So maybe I have to change that. And I had the chance to organize a training day on the Saturday at the Frysen arena. And I will be doing more of those. So keep track of my calendar on my website and of course on Airsoft World when the data will be online. Now during this day we did 3 different things. We did more things, but we had 3 bigger groups that we trained. First we went over moving and shooting and the stances that you do. Then secondly we went to the gear that we're using and how we use our gear. And the third thing was moving in a duo or even with 3 people to take out some targets. Now starting with the movement and the stances. I had 3 targets and 3 shooting spots. The targets were numbered from 1 till 3 and the spots were numbered from A to B. First exercise, we were standing in the second position and we had to shoot one of the 3 targets that was going to be called out by me or my friend. So we shot 10 targets with 10 BBs and then we checked the result on how many targets we hit. Which was an interesting exercise because, well, we used to shoot a little bit more. The second exercise I switched around. We had 3 different positions where we could shoot from on one target, the middle one. So then again, it was called out which spot that we needed to shoot from into the middle target. And then for the third exercise, we made it a little bit more difficult and we called out a letter and a number because the spots were A, B, C and the targets were 1, 2, 3. So for example, I called C2, which meant that you needed to go to position C, shooting target 2. And I can tell you, it was an interesting exercise and I'm looking forward to do it more because your brain is working while you need to figure out where you need to move, while moving, while shooting the target. Interesting exercise. So the second exercise or cluster of exercises, we went from the movement and stances to gear. And in the gear, we started off with slings because there is the 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, and whatever else things people use to carry their rifle while they are not carrying it with their hands. And that started an interesting discussion on what people like to use and why they're using it. So we did the exercise with different kinds of slings. We looked at the other person, what he was using, and getting some tips and tricks from each other. I'm using a 2-point sling that I can easily extend to shoot and then retract. Is that the correct word? And then I can retract the sling if I need to just carry the rifle and rest. So from the sling we went to reloads. It's something that I really like to do, the reload drill, because for some reason a lot of people don't think about it, and I have a good system on my chest rig, but not a lot of people have that good system and they need to think about it. So that's why I keep using that reload drill to see how fast you can reload, but also which way you have your magazines inserted in your pouches, so how you can grab it and how you need to insert it in your rifle to be the quickest as possible with the least amount of movements with your hands as possible. And then we went back to the sling question we started off with, and then we were like, okay, is the sling in the way of your magazine when you try to take it out? So then I told people you need to have one magazine that is always available, that if you need to do that important reload, that you can immediately take that magazine and put it in your rifle, and you don't touch that magazine if it's not a very important moment that you need to reload. We first did this just standing still, and then we also added in some movement, moving towards the target to make sure that we shot 3 times at the target, did a reload, and shot another 3 times at the same target. Again, a really interesting exercise to shoot the target from about 10 meters and then have the 3 shots, reload 3 shots. You add in that element of stress that you need to be able to have that reload and shots on target within the time that you have walking up to the target. And walking up to the target makes it more difficult to hit the target. But that's all part of why I love to do those training exercises. It's getting better, trying to use those small details to get that little bit better every time you do the training. A very interesting exercise that easily can be done at home to get familiar with your gear and create some muscle memory of you getting in and out the magazines of the rifle and in your pouch. Now how you do it, that's up to you. That's how you feel comfortable with your setup, and that's why you need to practice your setup. Next up, we went to a dual fire and move exercise, something that is very important in CQB. You almost never get more than 2-3 people to move with you at the same time, so I don't really focus on that. Usually I focus on 2-3 people max, because when do you have the time to have 4 people stacked up on a doorway or something without getting flanked from the left or right? Things are really moving fast in CQB gameplay, so that's why I focused on duo gameplay. And one of those simple things that will change the way that you play immensely is you fire and maneuver, and the fire and maneuver is one moves and the other one fires. It's a very basic principle to keep the person that you are moving towards to suppressed, but a lot of people don't do it, or they move or they fire. But if you do it together, the person on the other end, he will not peek out, and you will be able to close in on him and get a better angle to take him out. But to be able to do that, you need to have a way to communicate with each other, so you're not both moving at the same time or you're both shooting at the same time, because then nothing happens. So with a simple moving exercise, you can practice with your buddy, and it can be anybody in the field, because if everybody knows the same way of moving, with those two simple words, you can start moving with everybody that's beside you. You just look at him, you say the words, and you start doing the practice towards the enemy objective or the enemy person. And we practiced this with me being on the receiving end with 2 targets that I showed, one at the door and one in the window, and that gave an extra challenge for the team moving up, because they needed, as soon as they saw the target, they needed to engage that target. And when I felt that they were not suppressing me, they failed the exercise, because the exercise was making sure that I cannot peek out, and the targets were just an extra difficulty for the people moving up and firing. But they did a really good job, and I would not have shown my face in this situation. They kept suppressing me, and even when the reload was happening, they communicated that with each other, because the previous exercise we incorporated in this one, well, you needed to reload at some point when you ran out of BBs. Because they practiced it, they could do a really fast reload and getting BBs back on target really fast. And as a last exercise, I put 6 targets in the area that they needed to clear with a duo team. That was an exercise on communication. They both had to shoot the target, even though the first person already shot it. He needed to communicate where the target was, and then when they were passing by, the other one could shoot it, or they could change direction so the other person could shoot the target. That was up to them to make that decision on the spot, and I was just following around. And after the exercise, I gave them some pointers on what I would have done differently, where they made a mistake, where they crossed fire lines, where they forgot to shoot a target, or that they did a weird communication. And after that, we had a quick discussion about it. We tried it again, we tried a different area, we put the targets on different locations, and we just kept repeating the exercise. And in the last exercise, we did it with 3 people, and then suddenly you notice when you go from 2 people to 3 people, the whole dynamic changed. For example, I was the third person, and I was like, okay, I feel useless at this moment, because communication with 3 people immediately makes it a lot times harder to communicate on the field where things are going. There was a lot of stuff changing when you do this with 3 people, something that I didn't think about, but by doing this exercise, suddenly a lot of things came to my mind. I was like, okay, I need to focus on this a little bit more to make sure that I don't shoot my friends in a hectic situation. This will change a lot while people start shooting at us. It was a very fun day, and I needed it more than I expected. There was a lot of stuff that I needed to practice, and I practiced it, and it was really fun doing it. So I hope that I can see you in the next one if you want to up your skills a little bit, and I will be doing more of those events in the future. So make sure to keep track of my website at Airsoft World, where all the events will be posted. Now I have one question for you. Do you exercise your skills in Airsoft, or you just go to a field and you be like, well, we'll wing it and we'll see how it goes? Let me know in the comments. I'm very interested about that. But for now, I want to wish you a very good day, and thank you for being here with me on this first training day, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one really soon, and we see each other next week for a new video.